I'd like to call this meeting of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, Electrical Safety and Licensing Advisory Board meeting to order. This time I'll do a roll call under item B. Keith Bell, presiding officer, I'm present. Mr. Michael Vermillion.
Present.
Mr. John Lewis.
Present.
Ms. Stacy Malcolm. Mr. Randy Pomacall.
Present.
Mr. Mark Roach.
Present.
Mr. John Sparrow.
Present.
Mr. Gary Strauss.
Present.
And Mr. Marcus Lundgren.
Present.
I certify that a quorum is present this 11th day of January, 2018. And I am Keith Bell, the presiding officer. First of all, let me welcome you to our meeting today. I hope you find it insightful. We had a great summit this morning, and I appreciate the department for hosting that and giving us an opportunity to talk about workforce development. So with that said, we'll move on to item C. Item C is approval of the minutes from the November the 2nd, 2017 meeting. You received those in your packet. If there's no revisions or corrections, the chair would entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Mark Roach.
Motion, Mr. Roach. Is there a second?
John Sparrow, second.
Second, Mr. Sparrow. Got a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Under item D is our public comment. I didn't receive anything from anybody, our forms that you're supposed to fill out, so I'm assuming nobody's wants to address the advisory board today. All right, great. Moving on to item E is staff reports. Item number 1 is our license division, and I would recognize Ms. Lisa Hodak to give us our licensing statistics. Lisa.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. Hello? Okay. I'm Lisa Hodak, licensing manager. David, who kind of did steal my joy here earlier, did discuss the licensing statistics, if I can talk. But I will just kind of briefly touch on a couple of things. First quarter for fiscal year 2018, we have almost 17,000 master electricians and almost 36,000 journeyman electricians. Our apprentices, we are just over 77,000 as total population. And then I will just skip to the combined licenses. The individuals, we have 137,703 for individuals. Total population for facilities is just over 11,000, and total combination is 148,845. And that's, of course, for our first quarter. Also, just kind of wanted to mention, as Doug will be going over this shortly, but we are now starting to work on the processing for House Bill 1698 for the journeyman industrial electrician licenses. And what that means is we're going to start on the license applications, the frequently asked questions, of course our computer programmer, so we can get that all going. And that's kind of part of this whenever a new license starts. And that pretty much concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Any questions concerning our licensing statistics or from our licensing division? All right. Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Moving on to item E2, the customer service division. At this time, the chair would recognize Mr. Trey Seals. Mr. Seals, he's going to give us overview of the customer service division and some statistics.
Good afternoon, Chairman and advisory board members. Thank you for your service. My name is Trey Seals, and I'm the director of the division here at TDLR that has more contact with our licensees, at least by phone and a few walk-ins, than any other division in the agency. That's the customer service division. From our contact center, which is located at the E.O. Thompson building downtown, in our headquarters, we communicate with most of our licensees and future licensees in a variety of ways. We take about 2,000 phone calls per day, which that translates to about 250 calls per hour. Of course, we don't just talk on the phone today anymore. We do also have email, which at this point is about 400 emails per day. And we also manage the responses to our Facebook accounts and also our Twitter. So we do that with a group of about 50 folks, and we have a fantastic team who are full of heart and really have the voice of the customer and the interest of the customer at heart. And what we do consists of asking lots of questions to get to the bottom of what the customer is needing, whether it's a citizen needing to find a contractor or to check on an electrician, license status, or an application issue for a licensee. So we do a lot of directing and guiding, informing, and pointing out information. We're messengers. We do this in 4 languages: English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean actually now, and Mandarin. So that's 5 now, because we actually hired a couple people who do speak Korean. We started, just a quick history, we started out with about 9 customer service reps originally, and I remember down on the first floor where we began, it was 2005 in the customer service took on the calls for the industry for cosmetology, barbering. I think those were the 2 that year, and it's just grown from there ever since. We are really excited about some things that we are transitioning to in the way we handle our service in the customer service division. We're moving more to a proactive approach using new technology, such as customer relationship management software, to help us better track the incidents that come in or the issues that come in that we're assisting with, to make sure that we complete those issues and make sure those things get resolved and we follow back up with the customer. To talk a little bit about statistics, for the first quarter, it looks like we have had in September, it's looking at around 1,944 to 988, 887 calls each month for the first quarter, emails each month for the first quarter. And then as you can see, the industry does reach out to us primarily by phone. So we do interact with many phone calls each month for the electrician program. I'm happy to entertain any questions, and it's very nice to meet you today.
Any questions for our customer service division?
Mr. Chairman, Mark,
Yes,
are
sir.
you limited to what you can talk to folks about on the phone, or?
Are we limited? Well, we know a lot about the beginning steps for all programs, so we do answer phone calls for all industries. If we do not have the subject matter expertise, we are responsible for knowing who to get that person to, or who to get that communication to get the subject matter expertise needed. So
Okay.
whether it's compliance, whether it's Jerry or Larry or someone in enforcement, we know who to go to get the answer.
So of the total number of calls that you field, what percentage do you end up having to process out to somebody else, another
So the customer service division is the front line and the communication point. We do our best to handle the needs in customer service so that the other functions can do and focus on the actual processing of applications. Ultimately, I would say, I have not looked at that actual figure. I'd say we handle most of the simple questions right here in customer service. So if it's an application question, if it's an interpretation of a rule or a policy, then those would go to our compliance. And if it's an enforcement issue, then those would go to the enforcement division. We don't actually get into discussions of enforcement actions or anything like that. So, but the majority of the calls we do answer, I'd say a good 85% of the calls we can handle through gathering information from the various divisions and then communicating that back to the customer.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Sills.
Thank you.
We're on item E3, Enforcement Division. This time the chair would recognize Ms. Dawn Burton. She's going to give us case highlights and enforcement statistics. Ms. Burton.
Good afternoon.
how are you?
I'm Dawn Burton, prosecutor in the Enforcement Division, and I'm providing today's staff report. In today's case highlights are 5 cases, including 2 default orders, 1 denial of application, and 2 agreed orders. The first case, the first default order, involves Gerald French. The respondent, had performed electrical work without an electrical contractor license, and also while his master electrician license had been revoked. It was revoked for performing electrical work without an electrical contractor license. Because the respondent did not respond to the department, a default order was issued for $8,000, and that amount has not been paid. The second case of Tomas Salinas Jr. is a second default order. The respondent was offering to perform electrical work during a department sting operation without an electrical contractor license. Also, while his apprentice electrician license had been expired. The respondent did not respond to the department, so a default order was issued assessing a $5,000 administrative penalty and revoking his apprentice electrician license. The third case is a license denial. The respondent had applied for an apprentice electrician license while incarcerated. The department denied the application because the law does not allow an individual who's incarcerated to hold an electrician license. The fourth case is Enviro Life Solutions. This respondent had contracted to perform electrical work without an electrical contractor license. The department and the respondent agreed to settle this case for $15,000, and an agreed order was issued. This amount has been paid in full. The last case of the second agreed order is the case of Larry Pryor. The respondent had allowed another to use his license to pull an electrical permit, and the department and the respondent settled that case for $1,500. Do you have any questions about the case highlights?
Any questions concerning the cases?
In the key statistics, there's one item that I'd like to call your attention to. You'll see that there's a gap between the amount of penalties assessed and the amount of penalties collected. A large percentage of the uncollected administrative penalties relate to cases involving unlicensed individuals. But the department has a new plan to try to fast-track these cases. General Counsel developed, with enforcement, developed a plan to refer these cases to the Attorney General. The referral will seek an injunction and in order to help stop them from performing unlicensed work again. Any questions about the statistics or any other questions?
Any questions concerning the statistics or the enforcement division?
Mr. Chairman, Mark Roach. Don, did you give this guy who was in jail an E for effort for at least thinking about what he was going to do when he got out?
I don't think we have jurisdiction to do that.
Don't have this.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Burton. Going on to item E4 is education and examination. This time the chair recognizes Ms. Frances Pringle concerning current projects, statistics, and trends.
Hello, I'm Fanny Pringle with Education and Examination. Presiding Officer Bell, members, I believe you have our report. The first part of our report is statistics on our email communications, and then we go to our examination review committee meeting notes for the Journeyman Industrial Electrician exam. We will meet again March 8th and 9th to finalize this new exam, and it is tentatively expected to go live July 1st. We additionally met in December for the Master Electrician exam review. We reviewed poorly performing items. We also added and approved some new items. And those updates will be republished March 1st, and we will meet again March 6th through 8th to discuss that exam again. At the bottom of the page, we have our new division org chart. And on the next page is the fiscal year overview of the exam pass rates. And the next page, I don't know if you got the replacement that were supposed to be passed out. We have a replacement page. There's a detail of the pass rates by license type for the first 2 months of fiscal year 2018. And then the last page is the fiscal year overview of the continuing education course provider and curriculum statistics. Are there any questions I can answer?
Yeah, Ms. Sprinkle, I got one. On the new handout we've got, we are now splitting the test, master's exam into
Correct.
calculations and then the code. The passing rate that's under the master is just for the month of September only.
September, I think September and October, let me see here.
Says all 3 months.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It's where it says, yes, it's all 3 months,
But
September through November.
beside master, in parentheses, it's got 9/1 through 30,
That's-
2017 only.
That's because that's the pre-October 1 exam, where all the exam was in
One piece?
one
Right.
piece, and then October 1st, they split into calculations and NEC knowledge,
So then the master calculations, the master NEC, that's
2 months.
2 months, November, actually October, November, December, or just through November?
Just through November.
So that's the pass rates for those, which,
Correct.
certainly I think that's more than reasonable. I wouldn't think more than 10% ought to be passing that test
Well,
as a
we-
master electrician.
We were very concerned about how low those numbers were.
Oh, no.
And but I got some reassurances from Jerry Daniel that they would go up, just to be patient, and in fact, they have gone up. To date, the NEC knowledge portion has jumped considerably to 25%. And even the calculations have ticked up a point to 10%. It's my expectation that the NEC knowledge will go up even farther, possibly even exceeding what the previous master exam was, and that's because the NEC content is exactly the same exam as it was pre-October, just with the calculations removed. So it'll, in some sense, it'll be easier to do well on that exam. So it may exceed the previous number. However, the calculations, that we'll see if that goes up any more. The design of this exam was specifically to address the concern that there were licensed master electricians who did not have minimum competency to be safe with regards to calculations. And so, and it was widespread knowledge that you could take the pre-October exam and not answer a single calculations question correctly and still be licensed, still pass the
Yes,
exam.
good.
And so this kind of addressed that concern.
Good. All right, great. I just saw the previous, pass rate of 42%. That's way too high. But personally, I thought, the average of 9 and 11 is 10. Used to, when we took these tests regionally, the passing rate was single digits. So, that didn't alarm me. So,
There's,
and I think the 31%, 32% for the journeyman, that's more than reasonable. We need to be able to assure this is a minimum level of competency.
absolutely.
So, thank you for that information.
Any other questions?
Any other questions on education examination? Thank you, Ms. Pringle.
Thank you.
Moving on to item E5 is Compliance Division. This time the chair would recognize Mr. Jerry Daniels. He's going to give us an update on some speaking engagements and their activities industry concerns in the 2017 NEC. Mr. Daniels?
Good morning, Chairman, Advisory Board. My name is Jerry Daniel. I'm the Chief Electrical Inspector with the State of Texas Department of License and Regulations. If you take a look at our staff report, you can see the meetings we had. Last time we were here, we talked about Harvey. We couldn't get the training for the inspectors in Houston. NFPA and Mr. Sargent were very nice to come down after Thanksgiving and provide that training in Houston for the inspectors all in the area. It did turn out to be pretty good. We had a total of 80 participate throughout the area in 2 days, so that was really a good thing. You can see the rest of what we did. Not a lot in between. I didn't want to fill it up with all of the task group webinars and meetings we've had over the past few months for the National Electric Code Panel Making 17 for the 2020 National Electric Code. But that has become considerable time-consuming working on that. But now we do have an input, and we will have our input on Code Making Panel 17 when you see the 2020 National Electric Code. Concerns from the industry still seem to be the same. I know we're really busy. We're just not getting our vehicles marked. We're putting people on the job without their license. We're not putting the TDLR's information on proposals, invoices. So these are things, we're not trying to make it look bad. We're trying to give people pointers on what they need to look at, especially if you're a contractor out there. Set something up in place, check your license, check your trucks, check your invoices, proposals. So those are real concerns of the industry we have. And then, as always, we remind everybody when we have a code cycle change that we are officially, as of September 15th, 2017, on the 2017 National Electric Code. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions of the Compliance Division, this report? All right. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Going on to item E6, the Executive Office. This time the Chair would recognize Mr. Nick Vionis, give us a bill implementation update, a briefing on TDLR's response to Harvey and any other recent developments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Nick Boynes of TDLR. Want to wish you a Happy New Year. Thanks for being here today, and thank you for your service to the state of Texas. I want to congratulate you on your successful summit this morning, and it looks like you'll be back for another round here coming up pretty soon. Wanted to also mention that Stacy Malcolm at the last minute was not able to attend today because of a meeting that popped up, and she tried hard to get here and couldn't. So, but wanted to also just, as Chairman said, give you a little Executive Office report, a summary of kind of what's been going on around the agency. We have been busy with bill implementation, bills that were passed over the last couple of sessions. The process continues as we, as all of our divisions have been involved in everything from developing and reviewing the rules, like Doug Jennings will offer us here in a few minutes, to communicating to stakeholders, appointing and prepping board advisory boards, hiring additional staff, and dealing with education exams, IT programs, and more. Majority of the work has been completed, but this is a process that will continue through this year as we add more programs this year and next. As Jerry touched on, last fall we were busy doing what we could to help businesses and licensees along the Texas Gulf Coast recover from the devastation of Hurricane Harvey. We worked with the governor's office and the governor's Rebuild Texas efforts, and we're successful in implementing procedures to help all eligible licensees in the affected areas to help them recover and return to work as quickly as possible. As you know, David Gonzalez, Jerry Daniels, Larry Reichel all played major roles in our efforts. We want to thank them. Our Harvey focus now is on the rebuild, and by protecting small business and consumers, avoid unlicensed activity and ensuring that they receive quality work for their hard-earned dollars. Information on all this and more can be found on our website, tdlr.texas.gov, and the Governor's Rebuild Texas site. Also wanted to mention 2018 is a non-legislative year, and therefore it's time where we spend time on our statute-driven strategic planning process. And we'll be going through that important exercise here again starting this spring, and you'll be hearing more about that real soon. Wanted to touch a little bit on our website a bit. Again, we kind of refer to our site as our window to the world. It's our chief communications tool in reaching out to stakeholders and the public. Your site has been pretty busy. Some recent traffic numbers over the last 6 months. The electrical site had more than 500,000 page views, 512,272 page views, and that's an average of 2,784 per day. Your visitors appear to be on the go, as 55% of them access the site from a smartphone, another 5% from a tablet, and that's compared to 40% that did so off a desktop computer. The top reasons for visiting your site are online licensing, forms, laws and rules, frequently asked questions, and continuing education information. I want to let you know we're always looking at our sites to improve them, make them more fresh, informative, user-friendly. So if you have any thoughts, feedback, please pass them our way. Also, again, want to remind you about our social media accounts. We're on Facebook and Twitter if you'd like to follow TDLR activities and news on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions concerning the executive office report from Mr. Briones? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item F. F is a status update on recently adopted amendments to 16 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 73, specifically 73.26, regarding verification of on-the-job training. At this time, the chair would recognize Mr. Doug Jennings, our Assistant General Counsel.
Thank you, Chairman, board members. Again, Doug Jennings, Assistant General Counsel for the department. I just wanted to give you a quick update on Rule 7326. As you'll recall, at the last meeting of this board, you recommended adoption by our commission of Rule 7326. Now, that rule deals with verification of on-the-job training and makes it mandatory for a person to verify an applicant's on-the-job experience, assuming that work was actually performed, and gives a 30-day deadline for that. Our commission adopted that rule on December 15th, and it will become effective next Monday, January the 15th. And that's all I have on that item, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Jennings concerning the adoption of the verification of on-the-job training? All right. Thank you, Doug. Moving on to G. Item G, discussion and possible recommendation regarding proposed rule amendments to 16 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 73, specifically 73.10, 73.20, 73.24, and 73.25 and 73.80. These are the proposed amendments to implement House Bill 1698, 85th regular session, which created the journeyman industrial electrical license. The proposed amendments add a definition and address eligibility requirements, waiver of the examination requirement, continued education, and application and renewal fees. At this time, the chair would recognize Mr. Doug Jennings to review these amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Doug Jennings, Assistant General Counsel for the department. Before we get started, I believe they're in your materials, the proposed rules and the House Bill 1698. But if anyone would like a hard copy, I can get some. We've got some on the table there. If anyone needs them, just let me know. Okay, seeing none. We've discussed House Bill 1698 before. It is the bill that creates the journeyman industrial electrician license. And at the last meeting, I informed the board that some proposed rules would be forthcoming. The good news is that this bill was very easy to implement because of the way that the electricians' rules are structured. You look at different programs' rules. Some rules, such as electricians, leave most everything to the statute. There are some kind of bare-bone rules, but ultimately, anyone wishing to understand the rules will need to consult the statute. That makes rulemaking easier. As you'll see, everything that was needed to implement the bill is right here. Other programs, for example, we recently started implementing some rules for a similar new license type in the ACR, air conditioning and refrigeration program. It took pages and pages and pages to implement those. And so the good news for your program is that the rules are structured in such a way as to make our task easier today. And so my plan is to just run through the rules, to explain them, the changes to you. And ultimately, I would ask today, after any changes, is that the board recommend publication of these proposed rules so that we can obtain public comment and then return those comments to you at your next meeting in March. You'll see at Rule 73.10, the definitions, we have added a definition of journeyman industrial electrician. That language is taken directly from Section 1 of House Bill 1698. So we didn't paraphrase, we just took it verbatim. Rule 73.20 really just inserts into the rule journeyman industrial electrician, just stating that an applicant for that license, just as any of our other licenses, will need to submit documentation proving the required amount of on-the-job training. And of course, that is 8,000 hours as a licensed apprentice under the supervision of a master electrician. Rule 73.24 adds journeyman industrial electricians to the list of persons who can be recognized by reciprocity here, assuming the agency enters into an agreement dealing with that license type. Continuing education, this is an interesting one. Journeyman industrial electrician will have to complete 4 hours annually, just like the other license types. Wanted to include that. And then the fees for application and renewal are $30, and those are the exact same as the existing fees for journeyman electricians. I would happily entertain any questions, Your Chair.
Any questions for Mr. Jennings concerning the necessary rule amendments to implement House Bill 1698, the journeyman, industrial journeyman electrician's license? Okay. If there are none, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend these proposed rule amendments.
Mike Grimion, I'll make that motion.
Mr. Grimion has a motion is there a second?
Mark Roach, I'll second.
Mr. Roach has a second. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item H is discussion and possible recommendation to approve changes to the penalty matrix for the Electricians program. At this time, the chair would recognize Ms. Burton again. So, Ms. Burton. Thank you, Mr. Jennings, for your work with these amendments, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Burton.
Don Burton, prosecutor with the Enforcement Division. I'm presenting today's draft penalty matrix while John Medlock is out of the office. To cover again briefly about the purposes for the draft changes, the changes are to be consistent with the latest strategic plan, which sought to streamline the enforcement process and to focus on consumer harm and the threat to public safety. The work group did listen to the board's recommendations and created this draft penalty matrix. There are 2 changes in the draft. The first change creates a single range for each penalty class. Class A, B, C, and D, as you all know, used to have 3 different ranges for the first, second, and third violations. So that has been removed. This aligns the ELC program with some of our more recent program acquisitions at the department. It enhances the department's case at the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and it provides clarity for prosecutors and for judges. The second change moves 2 violations from Class B to Class C with unlicensed activities. This change was to make the violations align more closely with the severity of the activity involved. Did you have any questions about the draft penalty matrix?
Anybody have any questions concerning the draft penalty matrix? This does come as a recommendation from the work group that worked on this. We did meet, and then the draft was created, circulated amongst those folks on the work group, and so it is recommended as presented to you today. If there's no questions, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the recommended changes for the electricians' programs on this matrix.
Chairman Bell, Randy Palmacall, I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve the changes to the penalty matrix.
All right, got a motion, Mr. Palmer. Is there a second?
John Lewis, second.
Second, Mr. Lewis. Got a motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item I, discussion of the electrical summit and possible recommendations. This time I'd recognize Mr. David Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez.
Chairman, advisory board members, you guys were there, so I'm going to ask for y'all's input. Is it what y'all expected? Is it something that we need to improve upon? I really would like some guidance because this was a little bit different for us. We tried something new with the outreach and the Poll Everywhere app. I really appreciate y'all's participation, and I'm going to tell you, it was really great, the support we got from staff. The attendance was great, but I think Mr. Graminian actually approached me and said it best. This is not in our wheelhouse. We can't do a lot. It really does rely on other parts, but if there's something we can do to facilitate it, I want to continue, and I want to, we talked about it. Our executive director's already on board on having another meeting, maybe starting off where we left off. We kind of squeezed in, compressed that last part, and perhaps we start off with that. But I'm looking to you guys to tell me what y'all's expectations would be going from here.
Chairman Mike Rumian.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did make that comment, but I also suggested to you that having the state understand the problems and talking about it is a very good thing. I also discussed with him from the industrial sector down in the Houston area, we have been discussing this issue for about 10 years now. Okay, so really there was nothing new that was discovered today or talked about today that we haven't discussed in the past. And of course, I offered to share with him some of the statistics that we've unearthed over this 10-year process to kind of give him some knowledge moving forward of what we've lived now for 10 years. So again, I think it's good that the awareness via this TDLR is a good thing. But again, we have to solve our own problems, guys.
Appreciate your willingness to share the information, though. Between now and the next scheduled date for the second part of the summit, if you will, perhaps we get to review the information that you have to share or anybody else has to share. Our plans are to publish the polls that were up there, maybe even ask for some input on how we can improve this in the future if there's some other interaction, and before the next summit, maybe have that information available to you guys and to the public so that we'll have more to discuss at that time.
David, Mark Roach, you know, Houston is kind of a unique, isolated situation down there. Those guys do a tremendous job of their housekeeping there. However, I don't think that applies, you know, across the rest of the state. Their actions are exemplary and a good example for the rest of the state to follow. But it's kind of like an old education saying, if I can remember it correctly, there's no better way to learn a lesson than have to teach it. And I think this summit for the rest of the state was a good thing in getting people involved. And getting them involved makes them have to think, and when the thinking starts, that's when all these issues start coming to the surface. So I think that we need to have a continuation of it. I hope the rest of the board's in agreement with me that we move on to the next stage.
Appreciate that.
Anyone else? You know, David, I just want to, once again, tell you, appreciate you taking the effort to put it together. Thanks for the department to support it, to allow it to happen. You know, there's always a huge amount of risk when you ask a question you don't know the answer to. A matter of fact, a lawyer will tell you you never should do that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. So, that is, but you know, there is a certain amount of risk to step out and try to make a difference. And so certainly it's a need. It's something that for a lot of people that aren't legislatively involved or educationally involved, this was highly informative for, you know, even some of the people probably sitting up here to know, you know, how far this has gone from what promulgated it and then what's been done to give you the latitude to fix it. You know, once again, it's like a tennis ball through a snake. It takes a while to get to the other end, but we're moving that. And what we really need to determine, is there anything we can do, or or we're limited to do that we need to fix legislatively that would give us the latitude to help, create or determine, number one, and then fix the workforce disconnect, the development disconnect, because as you identified in some of those polls, why is this happening? Why do people want to be career apprentices? You either got to say that's a generational thing. I mean, we mentioned the millennials, but a lot of those guys working for me that are career apprentices, I can tell you, aren't millennials. So I'm not convinced that's the deal. So what have we done as an industry that's promulgated that to occur? And we've yet to figure that out. We just scratched that surface today. And I think we need to be, my recommendation as the department to continue to support, a Summit 2.0 and try to get that done sooner than later, simply because you'll just either have all brand new respondents and then you've got to get them all back up to speed. And so, it's a momentum process. And then certainly if there's something that we need to do that takes a legislative process, then we need to do that during the interim here before that occurs. So, I understand the department can't promulgate that. Industry has to do that. But if we can identify it and know what it is, then we can start working those issues.
You can definitely accept the direction not to let this languish, and I agree with you. We don't want the players to forget about what we talked about this last time. And this may actually parlay, if we can get this done quickly, our strategic planning will come up, which is more conducive to strategic statutory changes that may come along that we can accept guidance on, but not necessarily be able to lobby on. But the input that we receive is really good that we would get at this summit and perhaps during the strategic planning phases that we go through in the springtime.
You know what, I was encouraged that the department or this board didn't get thrown under the bus that it was all our fault. I mean, that's always encouraging, because that would be the easiest thing to do. But I would say, and I don't know about the rest of the board, but we all travel. Some of us, somebody left yesterday because they called me to ask me kind of how this won't fall out. That was.
Thank you, Marcus.
Mr. Lundgren. So, it does work well if we've got to meet again, which that's coming up in this agenda too. I don't know about the rest of the board, but it worked really well for us to do that this morning, spend 3 hours to do that, and then if you have a 1 hour, hour and a half advisory board meeting afterwards after lunch, it's the best use of our time as volunteers. So if the department's got the time to work that in, that's something I would respectfully ask you to consider. That would keep this ball moving down the field.
I'll defer to our advisory board support group, and I don't know if we're ready for dates or times.
And so with that said, before we move from there, any other comments, concerns, or recommendations concerning the summit today?
Chairman Bell, just a couple on with what you said regarding statute. The next legislative session is only a year and a half away. So if there's something statute-wise that we need to go to work on, we probably need to cross that bridge quickly so that we can develop whatever we need to develop, and it's ready for the legislature's consideration. Otherwise, it's 3 years away.
As Executive Office alluded to, Nick, actually, the off years for the legislative session are the years that we do our strategic planning for that very reason. It's still a short timeline, but that's when we get the input and we're able to share it as resources. We can actually provide all the information to any legislators that may be interested in addressing some of the deficiencies or challenges that we may have incurred.
Right.
Exactly. All right, if there's no other discussion on item I on the summit, I'll move on to J, recommendations to agenda items for the next board meeting. Tamara, I would reflect the minutes, the report, staff reports, that next time we meet, it'll be concerning the comments for the rules we just recommended to be posted for House Bill 1698. And then if in fact we can have another summit meeting prior to our next meeting, then it would be any summit recommendations that we would need to put on the agenda to discuss, or at least have like we did here in item I, just a discussion of those issues. We wouldn't act on them, but we could talk about them. So any other agenda items that the members would like to add to the next meeting?
Clarification, Mr. Chairman, Mark Roach. David, the information that came in off the Palmy thing, does that need to be on the next agenda for at least consider it, or is that information going to be compiled and available on site, or what's the?
David Gonzalez, TDLR. I was discussing with my counterparts, this is the first time that we've done it, so we thought it would be a good idea to use that as the starting point. Maybe we forego the presenters for this next summit and actually start with the data that we've discussed and gather more input, because we can actually still post these out there, do another blast, and continue to get input until the next advisory board meeting. Advisory board meeting or summit meeting, get it out to you guys so y'all can read the comments. I was having to rush through those, and it's quite a bit. I think there's a lot of information. I think we're going to find a lot of duplicity, but that narrows it down to the things we need to focus on. So I think that would be the starting point, and that would be the agenda items for
So
the
is
second
that
meeting.
one, so it would be a good idea to have one of that as an agenda item
Yes.
as well for the next meeting, okay.
Okay. Any others? Well, moving on to item K, discussion of date, time, and location for our next board meeting. We tentatively set March the 14th for our next meeting. Is there?
Mr. Chairman, Nick Voice, we had set aside Wednesday, March 14th, Thursday, March 15th.
Right.
Any of those two work?
Yeah, I mean, March the 14th, I guess my question was, could we do another summit the morning of the 14th and then do the advisory board meeting again at 1 o'clock on the 14th?
It is the spring break week,
Yeah, that's what I was just about to.
Okay.
and so give it a try, or you want to hold off?
Going to be here.
Can we move it before or after?
Because David Gonzalez, TDR, because it's an education component to it, I would hate for the educators that may be able to participate not be able to. So before or after, I'm not sure what we have in date.
Okay, we have three possible dates. March 8th, which is a Thursday. That would be the only available before spring break. But then we have two opportunities afterwards, Thursday the 22nd or Friday the 23rd. Or possibly the 27th or 28th.
The 22nd would be fine with me.
Well, I'm
Does
looking
that
to see
fit
what-
within
But
the,
I'll defer to our general counsel here to,
I'm looking there, trying to find our timeline real quick.
does the 22nd work, Doug?
I'm looking, if you would just give me just a second.
Could we possibly do the summit in the morning and then the board meeting in the afternoon, as we did this time?
I would,
With 1698, there's specific timelines that we have to meet, so that's what he's looking up right now. I'm certain we can do a morning and afternoon. It's just making sure that we can comply with that bill implementation timeline, because we have to have the exam done by a certain date so we can get those things on board. So let's see what Mr. Doug can come up with.
No pressure.
If that
No
works,
pressure.
if that works within Doug's timeline, is everybody, if we played calendar bingo, can everybody be here on the 22nd? If that works for Doug?
Mr. Chairman, I'd say either that or the week following, March the 26th.
That works better for me.
The week following gives everybody a chance to get over spring break recovery, so.
And David Gonzalez, TDR, pushing it back a week actually would cause perhaps the detriment. Remember, with the timelines for our stuff for bill implementation usually have deadlines, and they have to be filed with the Texas Register, so that's what he's looking. If anything, we would want to go earlier, not later, is probably the preference from General Counsel's office, because it's hard to get those fiscal impact reviews done and get all the stuff done through the governor's office as well.
March 5th. Yeah, so we can do that. Well, no, it has to be after the 5th. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, the public comment, I believe we're looking at the public comment period closing on March 5th. So if we met before March 5th, you wouldn't be able to hear all of the comments submitted.
Yeah, we weren't looking, we were looking to.
They're looking after March
the
5th.
22nd.
After March 5th? Okay, then that's fine.
The 26th.
I was kind of zoned out.
Yeah, the 26th is a Monday.
Oh, no, I was thinking.
can't do the 26th.
The week of the 26th, a day of the week of the 26th.
So the 13th and the 14th was pushed to the 22nd and 23rd as the preferred dates. Doug, that works for you guys?
That works, because we have a commission meeting the week after,
Okay.
so everything will still hit our
22nd?
timelines.
22nd?
22nd work for everybody?
Works for me.
All right.
Okay.
So our next meeting will
Thank you,
be
Doug.
on March the 22nd, and we will have a summit from 9 to noon. And then our advisory board meeting will be from 1 o'clock. We'll begin at 1 o'clock p.m. on March the 22nd. Does that work? Mr. Lewis, is that going to be okay with you?
Yeah, I'll move some stuff around.
Can you make that work for you? I appreciate it. Thank you. That's a team player there. I appreciate it. All right, any other, anything else coming before us? Next meeting will be March 22nd, 9 to noon will be our Electrical Summit 2.0, and then our board meeting will begin at 1 o'clock p.m. on the 22nd. If there's nothing else, it is 1:55 p.m. and we stand adjourned. Thank you.